Man, a show that I'm not happy to be doing. An unfortunate loss for Inter Miami on the weekend. Last night they took on Austin FC in Austin, and fell by a scoreline of 5-1. And if you didn't get to see the game, that's all we're going to be talking about here. If you want to go over, I did post a match recap that was basically just a not necessarily play-by-play analysis, but just a quick rundown of what happened in the match. You can go check that out on 5reasonsports.com. My article is up there and posted. I was at the game. I did get to experience it firsthand. And let me just say, if whatever you saw on TV was just as bad as it was in person, if you weren't part of the La Familia group that made it out to Austin at Q2 Stadium, which, by the way, I want to start off by saying I want to give a lot of credit to Austin. They have been phenomenal their first two matches, scoring 10 goals. It's got to be somewhere in an MLS record, I'm sure. They had a great tifo as well, which was another huge thing. And the fans at the end of the day were also really good. But we're not here to talk about Austin FC. We are here to talk about Inter Miami, of course. And let's just get right into it with the starting lineups, because there was questions about Damian Lowe. And if you watched our pregame show that was recorded before the news that Modesto Mendez and Noah Allen were going to be called up, I had personally thought that Damian Lowe would be okay and set to play. But at the end of the day, when they call up a young center back to the roster, usually that's not the case. So now the question became, do they stay with the back three with and sub in possibly Mabika in that starting role? Or, well, anything that I'm about to say right now didn't happen. Breck Shea was inserted as a center back, and for me, it was a mind-boggling decision by Phil Neville that ultimately didn't pay off. If it did pay off, he looked like a genius, and the way it happened in the match, he doesn't look so much like one. And I think that the problem with this was Breck Shea in his career has never been touted as a good center back. He has played there multiple times for multiple different teams on multiple different occasions, and it's just never, ever seemed to work out. For some reason, Phil Neville decided to choose the 32-year-old center back over Ame Mabika, who, all in all, would have been a like-for-like substitution for Damian Lowe. He's manned the middle of a three-man backline in preseason. He did it a ton at Fort Lauderdale. And instead, what you're seeing there is Breck Shea at the left center back instead of McVeigh, who was there in the last match. Quinteros in the middle, who had a rough game on the right side, in my opinion, in the first match as well. And then McVeigh switching over from left center back to right center back. In my opinion, this back line should have been Christopher McVeigh on the left, Ame Mabika in the middle, and Jairo Quinteros on the right side. That's what the defense should have been, and there was no reason, in my opinion, for it not to go like that, other than that Phil Neville said, you know what, in a game like this, we're going to go with experience on the road, blah, blah, blah. That didn't prove to be the right choice. I thought Breck Shea had a match that, in reality, was really poor. His lack of movement and realization on what was going on the set piece, resulted in Austin FC's second goal of the game, 4 minutes after their first, I should say. There was a lot of questions to be asked about this decision, in my opinion, and I think that, and I don't think it anymore. I know that was probably not the right choice, and Mabika should have been in there. But I'll stop ranting about that for now. I want to talk about everything else, because obviously Noah Allen started, and Noah Allen is one that I want to point out because, as a 17-year-old left back, the expectations aren't necessarily too high, but at the same time, they're going into a game where getting points is probably extremely important. Starting off the season strong is something that Miami has failed to do in their short history. And going into Austin, I thought there was an opportunity for them to get some points out of this, at least one, maybe three, and I thought that they would be able to do it. But without Damian Lowe back there, and I must say, with the Damian Lowe absence was truly felt. I can't talk about that enough. Noah Allen having to do more defensively, than he was asked in the first match was proving to be a problem. Diego Fagundes on that right size or on that right side ultimately got the first assist of the match. He beat Noah Allen down to the byline, who was caught out of position quite a bit, and then put in a cross to the back post to Udrisi, and there it was 1-0. I can't say that he had a particularly strong game, and unfortunately for him, until he signs a first team deal, I think that that'll be his last MLS regular season match because of the rules with MLS Next Pro. Now, does not mean he won't play for the first team again this season, because I think he still has a possibility of playing in U.S. Open Cup matches, which is the other competition that Miami are in this year. But it was a rough game for the 17-year-old, but it was a rough game for the back line as a whole anyway. So I'm not going to put all the blame on Noah Allen. Going forward, I thought that he showed really good ability to find spaces, call for the ball in right areas. In the end, the final product wasn't exactly there, but going forward, he was doing exactly what he was asked to do as a wing back. And I'm going to switch it over now to the other side and DeAndre Yedlin before I get into another real problem into this team. DeAndre Yedlin going forward in the first half was good until he had to make a final pass to get the ball into the box or find somebody open to continue the run of play. The transitional offense relied on DeAndre Yedlin a lot in the first 45 minutes, which makes a lot of sense. He's got the pace. He's got the ability, and I think that with DeAndre Yedlin being there, it's a positive, right? But at the end of the day, if he's not able, and there were I think 3 or 4 different occasions that I can think of, maybe 2 or 3, maybe not 3 or 4, but at least 2 or 3 different occasions where I can think of DeAndre Yedlin running up all the way down to the box, finding the ball, whether it was through a dribble or an overlapping run that he got the pass on the end of, but he didn't make the final pass to get into the box, didn't get the ball into any threatening positions. And I think that is a huge, huge issue. Noah Allen also wasn't able to do it, but obviously the wingbacks aren't the only people on the team that should be working on transitional offense. And I am going to give, both those players some stick for it, but at the same time, I need to look at this midfield three. I need to look at Mo Adams, Gregory, and Jean Mota and say, all right, what happened in the first 45 minutes against Chicago? Well, they sat back, they countered, they tried to play for counters, and those three struggled in transitional offense. They weren't able to make enough connecting passes to find Campana in good areas or Higuain in good areas to feed Campana or get a shot for himself. And that reigned true in the first 45 minutes against Austin FC. I think that Jean Mota is probably the person given the instruction to play these passes, to try and be that connector in the middle. It seems like he gets on the ball a little bit more than Gregory and Mo Adams and doesn't look as pragmatic as them when going to make a forward play. But it's just not there. Those three in the middle don't seem to have a connection to Higuain or to, I guess, an Ariel Lassiter yet to help run counters. And offensively, I'm talking a lot about this team. I get it, and I'm sorry. And I know that they conceded 5 goals. I'm going to get to the defense, but if this team wants to be successful, they have to score goals. At the end of the day, this back line is young and experienced and is still getting together. We cannot expect a clean sheet every single week. I know DeAndre Yedlin went on and said in the press conference or the media scrum on Friday that if they don't give up goals, they can't lose. Inter Miami is going to give up goals. And I know that the Damian Lowe absence was huge and him coming back is going to help, but they still showed a lot of signs that they were going to concede in the Chicago match. Kasper Scherbalko was all over them. Stanislav Ivanov was all over them. Shaqiri was playing a couple of really decent passes to get players in behind. I think that this team is going to give up goals. So if they're going to give up goals, they need to go ahead on the other end and score some for themselves. And that also brings me to my next point here is too, Phil Neville in the first game came out and said, look, we're going to be this sit-back counter-attacking team. Defensively, you're giving up a ton of possession, right? You're letting the other team get on the ball, but a team that's comfortable on the ball is going to exploit your decision to give them the ball, right? They are going to completely exploit that and find ways to hurt you if you give them enough time. Austin FC did that, and they did it beautifully in the first 45 minutes, and also the set piece play. Unbelievable second goal, but the set piece play was good. Their goal to find Fagundes and then you just see on the back post was good. But them having all of that time on the ball is what created these chances for them. Time and time again, we see that we see that Inter Miami are struggling to look like a cohesive unit on the pitch. That is something that has reigned true in year 1, in year 2, and now going into year 3. I will say there was a lot of promise in the first match against Chicago. I just think that, playing against a team who's buzzing in confidence after scoring 5 goals in their opener, who's staying at home for their second game, the idea to sit back and give them almost 70% of the possession, by the way, 70%. I think it was 67 in the first half, ended up becoming 59. Obviously, the game got a little bit more open as the formation switch, which I'm going to get into in just a bit as well. But I believe the number was 67% in the first half that they gave up. That number, was it was expected to be around there, but it just was uncomfortable the entire time. It's okay to give up possession, but if you're looking uncomfortable and you're on the back foot and really struggling, there's an issue. And another issue I have with this team defensively is, when Phil Neville, there are some kind of press triggers in this team. There is something that the other team does when in their own half or in their own third that Miami decides, okay, here's 3 or 4 attackers, go on and press. That is completely fine. It kind of reminds me of like a Leipzig kind of esque team who press really, really well and get their opponents to have to make decisions in uncomfortable situations. Those press triggers can be successful, but they need to be more disciplined. Not only do they need to be more disciplined, but they need to cover up more space. Because at the end of the day, in the first half, I don't think any of those press triggers were successful. And I think that the reason for that, and the reason that I saw for that, and I think I noted it on my Twitter, was that they're giving up switches of play while pressing. There is absolutely no point, and I mean no point, to be giving up or to be pressing when you're just going to leave an unmarked center back or center mid in the middle of the field when you're pressing on the line to just have a lob pass to and just have them wide open, then all your team's running back to get into shape, and then you give up the ball that way. There's absolutely no reason to be continuing this. If you're going to give up possession, give up possession. If you want to do the presses, then press every man in they were pressing everybody in, let's say, a 10-yard radius, but all the other spaces seemed to be completely forgotten about. And it was so easy for Austin FC to get out of every single pressing situation that they kind of just toyed around with Miami and let the presses come on. They let the presses come on and then just played a ball right over the top into the middle of the field and switched to play in 1 or 2 passes that were super simple to wide open players. If you have 4 men going for the ball, that's a problem. If you have 4 men going for, a couple of different players that are in that area, better. But I need those other 6 players to realize where the open spaces are and be able to go and make an anticipated interception if they possibly can. That's just me talking tactics, and I think that they had it all wrong in the first 45 minutes, and that's probably why they went down 2 goals. Another reason they were down 2 goals is that they couldn't score. I talked a little bit about the attack already, and basically they had no real opportunities in the first 45 minutes. They had 1 shot that was inside the box. It came from Ariel Lassiter, but it was a weak shot that came towards the end of the half that absolutely had no significance whatsoever. It was an easy save, and I think that that's a problem. And Lassiter is a name I want to talk about too, because everybody's calling for Ariel Lassiter to start this game, right? After the Campana couple of missed chances in the first match, Lassiter looking really threatening on the counters in the second half against Chicago. In the last, I think it was 25 minutes he played. Lassiter was asked to start this match by a lot of the fans, and Phil Neville asked him to do it too. I can't say that I expected that. I thought Campana was good enough to keep his starting spot, but At the end of the day, he went with Ariel Lassiter, and I think, without a midfield that's capable of being able to play transitional offense, there's no reason to have Ariel Lassiter in the game if you're going to have him making runs and not get the ball on the end of those runs. There's no point to it. He was running around for 45 minutes. I don't even know how many touches he had in the first half. I should have went and looked at that number, but he was basically non-existent. He wasn't making the center backs work as much because there was no real threat. While they only have 33% of possession, that's one reason, but he was no real threat because nobody was able to play a pass. There were times where I saw maybe Jairo Quinteros trying to play an over-the-top ball, but at the end of the day, it was never a real threat. Ariel Lassiter was never a real threat in this game. Maybe at the end of the second half, different, but that was due to the formation change. So I think in the first half, a lot went wrong, and that's why Phil Neville had to make this change in formation. So what he did was, instead of playing, this 3-5-2, he went with a 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2, however you really want to look, where Higuain was playing, and inserted Leonardo Campana up top and Robert Taylor off to the left wing, while Lassiter dropped in as a right winger. Formation that Phil Neville played a lot last year. This 4 at the back, 4-2-3-1. Campana and Higuain as the 9 and the 10, I guess. And it offensively, yeah, but it worked, right? Campana got the first goal of the year. I think that they were on the ball a ton more. I do need to make a point here in saying that the game was also completely opened up, and it's kind of a rough sample to take because I don't think that they would have had the success offensively to maybe even score that goal if they were in the 4-2-3-1. If they're playing that, off the get go, I still think that there's issues that this team needs to find out. But with the game being 3-0 by the time Miami scored their first goal, I mean, it's kind of hard to use it. But I'm going to use it anyway. I thought that the goal was good. They won a ball in a really good area, got it to Higuain. Campana at the top of the box takes a touch and a really good left-footed shot. But like I said, this was when they're already down 3-0. And that third goal for Austin was shocking. Christopher McVey losing the ball into the midfield, if I remember correctly. And then for me, I think that it was McVey and Quinteros after the misplaced pass were just basically on opposite ends of that half circle that's on top of the box. And there was a player that came right through the middle. He got the pass, and then Quinteros and McVey came into the middle together to try and shut it down. And you had runners on both sides. He played a simple pass to the end of the box, and that was about that. There was I think one play to the middle, and then they ended up scoring off of a thing. Kai, thank you very much. $1.99. I don't even know what to do. Wow, I love you, Kai. Let's just address this because I'm ready to. Lassiter was bizarre all over again last week. Held the ball too long trying to dribble and do it all himself instead of finding the open players. I don't think that Lassiter was on the ball enough for me, in my opinion, to say that he was like Pizarro. But at the same time, maybe a reason that you felt that, which I think is still valid, is because he had nobody really to help him. If Lassiter got the ball in the first half, it was by himself up front where nobody is making the runs to threaten because Lassiter is the threat. Does that make sense? If Lassiter isn't playing next to another striker, he is the threat. Higuain is not piercing through center backs. It didn't seem like Yedlin or Noah Allen were up the pitch as much as they needed to be when Lassiter got on the ball. So there's probably a reason why he held the ball too much, and his only choice at some points was to take on defenders. And you kind of want to get him ball in areas to just threaten him behind instead of taking on, players one-on-one. Another thing that I failed to mention is Clement Diop. That first goal that Miami gave up, it seemed like he really had a great chance to make a save, like an amazing chance to make a save, but he didn't. It seemed like there was no intent to make a save, which is probably extremely unfair, but he reacted a little bit slow, in my opinion. Got to the ground a little early. And if he doesn't make that save, I don't know what that does for the game. but anyway, let's get to a couple more of these comments here if we could. None of them have defensive diligence. Yeah, I think that that's fair. Stop worrying about not scoring when we're allowed these many goals from a freshly formed team. No excuses. Well, at the same time, I would say that if you're only scoring one goal in 180 minutes and you've spent, all this money on Gonzalo Higuain, you bring in a couple of international players that are looking to score. I think that the offense does need to be addressed because you're not going to win games if you're only scoring one goal in 2 game stretches. It's not going to happen. I do think that the defense is more of an issue right now because they did give up chances to Chicago and they did give up chances, obviously, to Austin FC. But at the same time, this is a really good time to point this out. If I go look at the shot map, which I'm going to try and pull up here, only let's see, one shot in the first half inside the box came from Ariel Lassiter, right? One shot came from Leonardo Campana, if you want to call that in the box goal. It was his goal, and then there were only 2 more shots in the box for Miami, only 4 total, and then the other 2 were from Robert Taylor, who Robert Taylor, by the way, was the person who took, I think, over 50% of Inter Miami's shots in the match. And not only did he take, or not over 50%, shots on target, I should say, in the match, and he was also responsible for about 37.5% of their XG number. And that was him coming on at halftime playing on the left wing. They weren't getting much up the middle or on the right side in either half. And of course they got the goal, but there was, I mean, a lot to be said for that. But I thought that Robert Taylor was good. If we want to look at a bright spot, I thought that Robert Taylor was pretty good. Got the ball a lot on the left wing, was looking threatening when he cut onto his right foot. A couple of shots probably needed some work, but at the end of the day, he was, like Daniel just said here, our most effective player. He was the only one that seemed hungry to get a goal, other than maybe Leonardo Campana in the second half, who I actually found had a pretty good second half. Granted, it was a smaller sample size than what we had in the first game, but Campana gets himself into good areas. When he's on the ball, it seems like he knows what to do with it at the right times. And I think that there's probably a lot of potential for Campana this season if he can get the service in good areas. But Taylor as well, he was, yes, effective. Cutting in onto his right, kind of like reverse Ian Robin, getting shots in. He probably should have had a better chance, or almost a goal, I should say. Probably should have put a ball on target with a Higuain cross that found him near the 6. It was a really good effort there from him, but didn't get to put in the back of the net. Listen, yeah. Well, I 1,400 points for going to take out Mo Adams. There's something to be said for that, because I think that the Gregory Jean Mota double pivot could be good if he's going to play 4-2-3-1 going forward. However, it's going to just be, all right, Gregory, you're in this role where you're dropping between the center backs. Granted, if it's Jairo Quinteros and Christopher McVey, I'm not playing a 4-2-3-1. I'm not. There's absolutely no way. You don't have enough defensive cover between Mota and only Mota and Gregory in the middle. And that's probably why Adams was in this game. He was probably in the first game. Phil Neville was looking for cover, knowing that he was going to give up possession. I don't think that Mo Adams fits right now. I think that the midfield 3 needs a lot of work. And I'm not sure who else you play in that position other than George Acosta, who is not really a defensive threat at all. He's just a forward playmaker. So there's a lot to say to that. Not one center back comes back to defend the ball when we try and come out playing. The 2 outsiders back were standing close to the middle field. That's true too. Noah Allen was cut inside a lot. I don't know about Yedlin as much, but there were times where Yedlin failed to track back and then put himself on the inside, and McVey had to go out wide. It was a mess defensively, like an absolute mess defensively in both halves. So I'm not sure. Obviously Damian Lowe coming back is going to be huge, right? The Jamaican international was the leader of the defense in the first game. He looked like he was really solid. He was the MLS Team of the Week player, but that's one player, and if you can't rely on the other 4 center backs on the roster, for me, like I said in the beginning of the show, it's shocking to me that Ame Babika did not get to play. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Let's keep going to some comments here. Lewis Morgan did score a hat trick. That was That was really good. And it was a really good, all three goals were really, really good. So yeah, credits to Lewis Morgan. Unfortunately, had to be moved, but I'm not terribly worried about it. We're practically an expansion team too, with what seems like 7% of the roster, different from last season. That said, and LA scored once. Look, yes, this is an expansion team, but you know, I guess technically an expansion team with all the new players. But at the end of the, they are going to need time and patience from the analysts, from the fans, the journalists, the coaches, everything like that. These players are going to need, need to be given patience. But at the same time, when I go ahead and look at a performance like this against a team that was reckoned to be, a mid to bottom table team who's now scored 10 goals in 2 games, and I go to preseason press conferences and I hear Phil Neville saying that this is his team, this is the player that he wants, this is the players that he's going to live and die by, and a performance like that comes out just because of pretty much one injury at the back line, you are really starting to worry me, and I will start to lose patience. And I think a lot of fans will too. There's not a lot of depth on this roster at the center back position. We talked about it on the pregame show. Damian Lowe is number one, obviously. Then you have Christopher McVey and Jairo Quinteros, who I have not been high on going to the first game and now to the second. I thought Jairo Quinteros, there's a lot to be asked from him. And then going under that, you have Ame Mabika. And other than that, you have to call up Modesto Mendez. Is Breck Shea, I guess, now on the center back depth? The center back depth is not there. And that's why I said, I don't remember where I said it, but I said it somewhere. And I think that it's very possible that Miami could go out and try and find a center back to bring into this team. And if Phil Neville thinks that a 4-2-3-1 down the line is going to be better, is he comfortable playing any of the center backs he played yesterday next to Damian Lowe in a back four? I don't think so. I think that it would be really smart for Chris Henderson to find a way to acquire a budget center back who can play really good minutes and possibly even be a starter. And maybe that's crazy because of what they've done to bring in Christopher McVey, having developed Jairo Quinteros while he was out on loan, and having Mabika on the roster who hasn't gotten any minutes. But obviously Mabika is not there to be played. Like, he was amongst the subs, right? He was amongst the subs, wasn't named to the starting 11, and Phil Neville decided to go with Breck Shea. So it just, that for me says something. I don't know if the trust isn't there or what, but I think personally that Mabika has had enough experience. We saw what he did in preseason. I thought he was good enough to at least be considered as a starter at some point in the year. But I guess that wasn't the case on Sunday. Let's see if I missed anything here. Taylor, yeah, I did. Yeah, Taylor was the most effective player. I think that he can be a really good MLS player. I think that Robert Taylor has more potential than people realize. I think it's been a signing that's been completely underrated by the league. Robert Taylor has that special something. He just needs to work his way to fitness. Campana's physicality is huge. Yeah, for sure. Up top as a true number 9, I don't think Inter Miami have ever had a true number 9. Like Campana in that position. Like even when Higuain was playing there, it wasn't it. Campana, like I said, also has the potential to be a really good MLS player. Yes, here we go with George Acosta stuff. Yeah, I understand why you guys everyone really is calling for George Acosta minutes. He would provide in, let's say, a 3-man midfield with Gregory and Jean Mota in a 3-5-2. He would take the sole responsibility to create chances a little bit away from Gonzalo Higuain. He would have to be relied on to play forward passes instead of Mo Adams or Jean Mota. We know he has the ability to do that. Also, another thing to note, he would probably take Gonzalo Higuain off of set pieces. Some fans may be calling for that as well. I just feel as though George Acosta will possibly get some good minutes going forward because of the lack of creation and chances that this team has had, especially with it falling on midfield players. Because like I said, this midfield 3, the disconnect is huge. Like the disconnect is massive. There's no transitional play. There's no 1-2 passes. There's no connecting the back line to the offense through them. If anything, they're clearing chances just like the back line is and just shooting balls up the field and waiting for second balls. And that's probably not the way to win matches in MLS. I just don't think that that's what they should be doing at this point. So with that said, I don't know if I've missed anything. Yeah, if we're going to suck and play the young guys, well, that for me, playing Breck Shea in that match had absolutely no positive upside. None. You've used your time to develop Mabika, get him from the draft, put him into Fort Lauderdale, play him through USL, where he was dominant at Kentucky, by the way. He was dominant with Fort Lauderdale. He was not necessarily dominant in preseason, but he was a good center back in preseason. They didn't give up a lot of goals in preseason, if you remember that. Mabika should have been in that game. Breck Shea had, I'll say it again, I think I already ranted about this 30 minutes ago, but Breck Shea had no right to be playing as a center back in this match. Breck Shea should be playing as the left winger rather than playing center back. Like, I would much rather him be far up the pitch than all the way down the pitch as a third center back, providing cover next to a 17-year-old who's in his second MLS game and defensively showed worrisome signs in the first match. I think it's as simple as that. Mabika should have been there in the middle of a back three with McVay and Quinteros on either side, and that, I think, would have eliminated some of the chances for Inter Miami. It was a rough game. I mean, it was a rough game. There's a lot to be upset about, but they're now going on to play LAFC at home on Saturday, I believe. What are you going to do about Carlos Vela? Hopefully Damian Lowe will be healthy to go in that match. I will try and provide updates in training, but I don't know how useful that'll be, considering we had updates on Damian Lowe in training, thinking that, he probably could be healthy for this match, and he wasn't. So, at the end of the day, you take what you can get, and we'll see what happens. But if Damian Lowe isn't healthy, Carlos Vela could prove to be a problem. And not that Damian Lowe is the only Lord and Savior for this team. Like, he is not the only one who will make this team win matches, right? There's still so many more issues that have to be addressed in training throughout the week going into this LAFC matchup. And hopefully they will be. I think that, in my opinion, I'm just going to say it now, I personally want to see two strikers. I don't know if Phil Neville will do it, but I want to see two strikers in some way. Oh, did he say Lowe is out for 10 more days? I didn't pick up on that. Wow. That's an interesting one. I'll have to go back and look for that. That's if that's true, then I guess we're in trouble. But I want to see two strikers. I kind of want to see a 3-4-1-2, rely a little bit on Mota and Gregory to protect the back line, give whoever's at the wing backs a little more defensive responsibility, and have Higuain play to Campana and Lassiter. Or you can call it a 3-4-3 even. It doesn't really matter. But I think that if they want to, be a team that's going to do good at home, you have to score goals at home. Austin's been scoring goals at home. And they have not been able to create chances with one striker. They did not get any shots in the box, like I mentioned, other than the one Ariel Lassiter chance in the first half with just one striker. I think with Campana and Lassiter playing next to each other, granted, it could provide even more defensive issues, and maybe you don't do this if Damian Lowe's out. But if you can rely on the back line just a little bit, you play Lassiter and Campana next to each other up top with Higuain behind, and let them run it and get themselves into positions in which Yedlin can feed them, Higuain can feed them, and maybe Jean Mota can ping balls over the top into them. That's kind of where I would go. It does leave for risk on the defensive side, but later on in a match, at some point you've got to go for it if they're going to go down like they did with Austin. So with that said, I think I'm done ranting. That was a rough one. Sorry to do that to everybody. 5-1 loss to Austin FC on Sunday night. Inter Miami play LAFC on Saturday. I'm not sure what time the game is. I didn't check that, but that should be one good for the fans at least. Obviously, back at Drive Pink Stadium, being at home, that could be huge. And hopefully they can get a result before they go away to Cincinnati, where we will be expecting a result and really probably will need a result throughout the end of the year. I'm Austin Robillard. Thanks for coming in, everybody. Thanks for joining. Kai, by the way, thank you so much. Of course, you're the man. Daniel, Adrian, Alex, thanks for coming in. And I will see you hopefully, this time next week when we talk about an LAFC win, LAFC loss and Inter Miami win against LAFC. But yeah, as for 5 Reasons Sports, Alejandro on the back end, I'm Austin Robillard. We'll see you guys next time.